AI Monday from Helsinki. We have a few hundred people on the line there. I don't know which camera to wave. Let's wave them all. Maybe that one over there. And half full house here in Helsinki, Tiedekulma, Think Corner. This event is organized by Dyn Studios, by Finnish Center for Artificial Intelligence and Ämplify. My name is Petri Malmelin and I'm from this A company, Ämplify. Before we kind of kick the show on, I'm a professional change planner and change leader. And I've been wondering that why certain transformations work while so many are slow, more expensive, and even some of the changes or transformation journeys, they fail miserably. And the best I've been come up, it's a mathematical equation. So if someone would like to do an AI journey in a company, one would need to think that what are the elements of this mathematical equation? So there needs to be, A could be the sponsors, that there's a group of people who really want to have the change. B could be the vision and the strategy. Is it something that is so compelling that it's worth to do? C could be, let's say, resources and funding. D could be the technology. And you need to kind of think that what are the components there? And it's a multiplication, meaning that if any of the components of this equation drops close to zero, well, you do the maths. So let's get the show started. Docent Patrick Florent from FCAI, please tell the news of FCAI. What's up?
Thank you, Petri. So as normal here in AI Monday, we in the Finnish Center of Artificial Intelligence, who are co-organizing, are telling about current things. So the Finnish Center for AI is doing research, and the partners funded by the Research Council of Finland is Aalto University, University of Helsinki, and VTT. And here you see a list of upcoming events of the Finnish Center for AI. I'm not going to read aloud what is here. I'm going to spend very few minutes with you to leave time for the next speakers. But I want to point out that we have every year arranged a big AI day, and this year is no exception, and the date is November 13 this year. Then a spin-off of the activities we have been doing is that we have this international collaboration within the ELLIS network. And the ELLIS Institute Finland, which encompasses all the universities in Finland, not just Aalto and University of Helsinki, was established at the beginning of the year and was funded by the ministry, partially funded by the Ministry of Education and Culture, and we had launched the first call for professorships, new AI professorships, and we got some 360 applications, so we're quite happy with that. The evaluation procedure is ongoing. Then something we also involved in is this network of European Digital Innovation Hubs. And FCAI means Finnish AI Region, European Digital Innovation Hub. We will have an event in Finnish coming up in May about the AI Act. So that was the update from my part, and I leave the floor to the next speaker. Thank you.
That was fast. Next speaker is the the director of AI Finland. When was it founded?
Last autumn.
And you and your team, you've done marvelous things. So are you going to tell something what you have done, or are you focusing more that's what's ahead?
We'll see.
We'll see. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. And thank you everyone for having me. My name is Karoliina Partanen, and I'm the director of AI Finland. Let's go to the actual slides. So who of you already know what is AI Finland? Please raise your hand. Not everyone, so I better give a brief introduction to what we are. So AI Finland is a network for companies, public organizations, and academia, basically for everyone who's interested in using AI in their core business or core operations. And as it was mentioned, we were launched last autumn, and already now we have 200 paying members in the network, of which we are really proud and happy. And we also have already thousands of LinkedIn followers, and our network is, of course, much wider than our paying members. And we have active members from all sectors, from all fields. We have startups, we have public organizations, and we have also listed organizations in the network. And in the core of all our operations is knowledge sharing. So basically, we want to be a router or a platform for companies who want to share their best practices for other companies and operators. And for today, I have a couple of interesting highlights of our kind of pet projects and most interesting projects we are doing this year. And probably the biggest one is this AI 1000 program, which we call AI 1000 Growth from AI. And the aim of this program is to launch 1,000 ambitious AI projects in Finland over the course of next 12 months. And we are going to do this by training 1,000 company owners, boards, and management teams. And as you see from this slide, this is actually a joint effort of entire technology field of Finland. We have had amazing partners, for instance, Sofigate, Futurize, Futu, Gofore, and Digia, who have been planning this project and the concept with us, and we have all the main stakeholders of boards and management teams who are helping us to spread the word, including Aalto University, Kasvuryhmä, Keskuskauppakamari, Boardman, and of course Teknologiateollisuus, Microsoft, and NVIDIA. And about this concept, so this spring we also made 2 large studies, one with Business Finland and one with Silo AI. And our main finding was that currently the Finnish companies are mainly using AI for their operational efficiency and operational excellence. So basically, they will be more productive, they will be more efficient, but the growth will not come from these kind of projects or initiatives. And that we really must change if we want to stay competitive and if we want to keep our welfare state in Finland. And that basically means that all the companies really must reinvent their core businesses. And who can actually do it? It's not IT, it's not even necessarily the operational management, but it's actually the owners of the companies and the boards of the companies who can actually change this. But will they do it if they don't understand the possibilities of AI? No, they won't. That was our main finding. And for that reason, and based on that finding, we actually started to design this AI 1000 Growth from AI program. And as already mentioned, the aim of this program is to actually launch 1,000 ambitious growth initiatives and programs this year within these 1,000 companies to be trained. And our concept for training is super effective. It's only 2 + 4 hours. And during that 6 hours, our value proposition is that this composition of board board people, management team members, and owners, they will actually invent one or two disruptive, radical renewal ideas, business ideas that can be enabled by AI. And they will also get implementation plans for these one or two ideas. And as you know, or as you probably know, AI Finland is just a small group of people as our core team, but in our network we have 50 to 60 excellent consultants and service providers such as Design Studios. And these companies will actually be the ones who will be conducting these trainings. And that's how we are actually going to achieve this number of 1,000. Otherwise, it will not be possible. But basically, we will launch this concept on April 24th, and from this QR code, you can enroll yourself to the launch event. Please do that, and by doing it, you can actually be the first ones being involved, either as a trainer or a company to be trained. Yeah, that's probably it about AI 1000. Another finding that we got from our two studies was that our academia and our AI research is superior. It's one of the best ones in the whole world. But we are struggling to actually utilize that top research in our companies. And we are lacking basically the means and the processes to kind of embed these AI research findings in our company products and services. And these are our two takeaways to kind of enhance the knowledge exchange between companies and academia. So the first one is a very low barrier or low, well, anyway, very easy to join online event where you can hear the latest AI research from VTT and University of Helsinki in the field of AI. And this one takes place on April 16th from 9 to 10. So if you're curious to hear what's up, what kind of research we are currently doing, you can enroll from the upper QR code. And of course, at aifinland.fi. And the latter, it's actually a doctoral AI and software pilots industry event where we will be matchmaking AI postdoc researchers and companies who are willing to start new AI research within their own business operations. So if you're curious to hear what kind of companies would be interested in your research as a researcher, please join this event. Or if you are a company and you are interested in hearing what kind of AI research is being done in Finnish universities and academia at the moment, you can join also from the bottom QR code and enroll our this other matchmaking event. So that will be physical and that will be taking place in Clarion Hotel Vantaa. Yeah, that's actually everything from my side. Thank you for listening and have a great rest of the event.
1,000 applause for doing the 1,000 AI people and matchmaking. Excellent. The next speaker is Professor Lauri Järvilehto, a part-time musician and a book writer. Please join the stage.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Lauri Järvilehto, and for the next 15 or so minutes, I would like to share some findings and some directions on how to actually carry out strategic implementation of generative AI in our organizations. And more specifically, I want to focus on the sort of not so undaunting task of navigating the so-called jagged frontier of AIs. Just a quick poll, how many of you guys actually recognize this term, jagged frontier? Just raise your hand if you heard about it. Nobody? Okay, cool. Then I know sort of a bit about how to position my arguments. So my current research interest is actually the interface between how the human mind works and what we're actually doing with generative AI, most emphatically the transformer-based chatbots, aka the large language model-based chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, and so forth. And I recently had a book come out on this topic called Konemieli, or The Machine Mind. The English translation is also forthcoming, I think, at the end of this week, so that should be available as well. But yeah, so basically, the topic for this talk is now kind of a bit more practical and maybe a tad more business-oriented. In other words, how to get the most out of these tools. I'll do a very brief segue around the middle of my talk to some of the findings in my book, but that's not going to be so much the topic. And kind of a quick background. So I'm kind of a weird person to be talking about this topic anywhere, to be honest, because my background is actually in philosophy of the mind and cognitive psychology. So that's most of my academic work that I've published in. And I've also ended up running the startup education unit at Aalto University for about 5 years. I stepped down about a year and a half ago. So I have a kind of a double perspective to AI. One is sort of from the insane complexities of actually understanding how the human mind works and how we should model that. And then on the other hand, sort of like, once you know how the sausage is made and you've been to Silicon Valley a couple of times, you kind of get a bit skeptical about all the hype that's going on. So sort of like, if you combine these two, the whole idea that I would be here talking to you guys, with a serious face about AI as an opportunity, 3 years ago, it would have struck me as completely insane. And yet, in 2022, when I got to use ChatGPT for the first time, my first impression was that this is theoretically impossible, yet I'm actually having a conversation with a computer. So all the theoretical work I'd done until that point implicated that that shouldn't be possible, or if it was, it would entail at least decades of breakthroughs in technology. While it actually only required one significant breakthrough from Google in 2017, the transformer, which is the architecture behind these large language models. And that's why when I got, and now like around the world, giving these kinds of talks, writing academic works, popular works like my book about this topic, I often introduce myself that I am Lauri. I'm a kind of a recovering AI skeptic. So that's my perspective to the topic at hand. Now, if we start looking at the sort of like almost paradoxical nature of general AI adoption and its effects on productivity and well-being, it's a very strange picture you get from current state-of-the-art research. So first of all, most of the sort of like quote-unquote laboratory research, so the type of research that has been done in controlled circumstances, almost without exception implicates that generative AI can lead to massive productivity gains, significant creativity gains, and now even most recently in a paper that was published a couple of weeks ago by Harvard University, even well-being gains. So, for example, in a paper that was published a year and a half ago, also by Harvard, that was researching Boston Consulting Group consultants, they implicated that these people who are working in a really high-pressure, super competitive business, that they can get to north of 12% productivity gains. The speed of their work increases 25% compared to people not using AI. And the quality of the work goes up 17 to 43% if you use these solutions appropriately. So that means that basically it sounds like now everybody needs to get on this AI boat because you get more productive, you get faster, and your work is of higher quality. However, another finding in this paper was that if you don't use these technologies appropriately, so if you adopt them for wrong kinds of purposes, the quality of the work goes down 19 percentage points. In other research papers, quite a few of them, some of them were rounded up by the Stanford AI Index about a year ago. Using generative AI in fields such as programming can lead to productivity gains of 10 to 70%. And if you think about that, that's like 3.5 days in a week. Like that you basically do 5 days worth of work in a day and a half, and then you can go out and enjoy the sunshine for the rest of the working week. So it sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? Now, the long story short is that it's not too good to be true. When you learn to use these technologies in an appropriate way, these are the expected gains you'll see. But the emphasis is on what exactly is the appropriate way for your particular sector, the domain that you're operating in, and that's something that nobody knows right now. And one final percentage point I want to share with you guys is that in a recent survey, including more than 6,000 people by a company called Upwork, it turned out that a whopping 77% of all the respondents responded that their overall productivity has gone down because their organization has adopted generative AI. So they spend more time learning how to interface with these things. They spend more time in correcting the errors these things make. They spend more time just trying to pick out that, do you guys know what a hallucination is? Just raise your hand if you do. So hallucination is basically when ChatGPT tells you something. There's even a term for this. Back in the day, they used to say that this overconfident way of representing things is called mansplaining. Now it's called AI-splaining. So ChatGPT doesn't know whether what it's saying is true or not, but it's going to say it very confidently nonetheless. So 77% of actual people in real working life are not seeing these insane proposed productivity gains. They're in fact seeing the very polar opposite of this. And why is that? And the reason to that is that we don't yet know how to navigate the jagged frontier. So this term is originally from the BCG Harvard paper that I already mentioned by a big number of authors. The most prominent ones are people like Fabrizio Dell'Acqua and Ethan Mollick, who has become this sort of like kind of leading figure in promoting these technologies. And Mollick launched a pretty good book last year called Co-Intelligence. Has anybody, by the way, read that book? Just raise your hand if you have. Nope? Okay. So highly recommended. Co-Intelligence is a very kind of like easy to approach, look into these technologies. And the jagged frontier means that depending on the sector you're in, depending on, for example, like, how big negative consequences do errors have in your field, the jagged frontier varies quite a great deal. And now if you're working in things like medicine or airplane safety, a large language model is probably not the technology you should rush to adopt. But if you're working in fields like qualitative research or commercial, like in an ad agency, these things can and have already led to quite significant improvements in overall productivity. Basically, any work that involves a lot of qualitative knowledge that doesn't need to be exactly spot on, factually accurate, can benefit from this. And for a Finn, we're kind of like known for our sort of very factual, kind of like non-hand wavy way of looking at things. It may seem, and many people actually agree, that that means that these technologies are useless. But if you think about how much you need to do, like innovation, like ideation, just coming up with new ways of doing things in the modern workplace, you can still gain benefits from these technologies as long as you learn how an LLM actually generates the content, how it actually works, what happens when you ask ChatGPT a question. And the big issue with bringing these to the workplace is that there's actually a double boundary blocking us from getting the most benefit from them. There's the adoption boundary, which is basically just that people don't really quite understand how a chatbot powered up with an LLM works. So many people use these as kind of replacements for search engines, and then they go like, that, hey, wait, that's not actually accurate what it said. There's just right now there was an article from Norway that a municipality in Norway had actually used ChatGPT to make educational policy decisions, and as a consequence, they shut down what was it, like 8 schools. And it turned out that the recommendations from the professors to shut down those schools were fabricated by ChatGPT or another LLM. I don't actually know which one they used. Because these things are not search engines. ChatGPT is not a search engine. The way the architecture works, it's a word guessing engine. That's what it does. It tries to statistically predict which word, well, technically a token, but that's a long story and I won't go into that, which word best fits any string of words to give it, based on training data in the order of magnitude of billions or hundreds of billions of words. That's how it works. That's why it doesn't really work well or reliably as a source of factual data information. That's why it doesn't work well for mathematical reasoning. It doesn't work well for logical reasoning or creating precise charts, like in the picture there. But it's amazing for ideation, brainstorming. Like, let's say that you have to build a training program for your team in your organization, and you're just scratching your head and staring at the blank screen and going like, I don't know where to even get started. Well, you just give a chatbot the description of your team, of your field, and how much time you have to use, how much money you have to use, and you get a first draft. Now, with output like this, it doesn't have to be, there is no absolute factual correctness of how to run a training program, right? And because you can actually piggyback off of that data, you can save days going into this work. And in my own work, I mean, I've already been able to find dozens of different ways of reliably using this that can, save hours, if not days in a week. I actually have a big problem right now because I tend to have these big 2 to 3 hour chunks in my day, and I've completed my to-do list for that day, and I'm like wondering, like, okay, so that went fast. What should I do now? Things like I have a summarization system in my email. Like whenever I get an email, I get a kind of a bullet point summary of what's in that email and what action is expected of me. The reliability of summarization is actually pretty good. It's in the ballpark of 1% to 2% with the best LLMs. So for summarization, it does fail sometimes, but the failure rate is actually lower than on average human would have. But think about it, like, I get hundreds of emails every week. And I get these 3-page, emails from my students going like, the dog ate my homework, can I get a week more to, submit my essay? And then I read that 3 pages and I come to the conclusion that that's actually the message contained in all of that, verbosity. And now I have a system that actually just gives me bullet points. Dog ate homework, can I get a week more time? And just respond, a week is okay, just submit it by blah, 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 done. And when you start compounding these kinds of use cases, you get a lot of time saved. Things like article summarization, drafting proposals, like if you're doing a grant application, which is one of the most sucky aspects of being an academic, you just save tons of time just feeding it applications that that have actually been accepted before, and then you get a rough draft based on those wordings, which is quite nice. And then maybe the best use case for large language models is ideation, coaching, so all kinds of things when you need a sounding board for your ideas. When you don't need, and this is once again, if you're not in curing cancer or running airplanes, actually curing cancer might benefit from this, but airline security definitely doesn't. So if you're in any type of space where you don't have to get absolute factual data for your ideation process, these things can give you a lot of spin and improve your efficiency with respect to creativity. So there is a use case, but discovering that use case is not something that any expert, any academic can do for you. It has to happen in your own sector, in your own organization, and perhaps even in your own team. So how should we then approach strategic implementation of generative AI? And so basically, this really depends on the leadership in your organization. You can game this guerrilla style a bit, even from the bottom up if you want to. But many of the organizations right now, what they do is that they get a Copilot subscription. And then they go like, yeah, we are state of the art. We're now expecting dozens of, the productivity gains. And what happens on the ground when people get a Copilot subscription is that they bumped into not just the adoption barrier, which I already described, but also in addition to figuring out where these should be used and where they shouldn't be used, we bump into an application boundary. So the adoption boundary is discovering where this technology works on its own. The application boundary is discovering that how can you actually work efficiently when this technology interacts with earlier existing technologies. Things like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Teams, Outlook, or the equivalent ones from Google or the other providers. And what happens when we bump into the application boundary is a lot of things that actually already in themselves explain the 77% finding of the Upwork query. When I started using the Copilot first time, the thing is, when it works, it's like magic, until it doesn't. And one of the best use cases that the Microsoft people demonstrated to me is that with the PowerPoint Copilot integration, you can give it a document that's like 30 pages or even 100 pages long. You can ask it to make a presentation, and 30 seconds later, you have a really solid, professional-looking presentation with even like nice images from some stock photo bank, looking very professional. So work that would take a human being, just first parsing through those 30 or 100 pages, then figuring out what are the salient points, creating a presentation would take at least days to accomplish. And I'm not kidding. I mean, if you've actually tried this out, it takes about 30 seconds. So once again, what are we all waiting for? The only problem is that for me, I'm a nerd. I'm pretty tech savvy. And it took me almost 3 hours to figure out the choreography you need to perform in order to get to this point where it takes 30 seconds. And now if you multiply this across all of these different application boundaries, so because this is just one use case, and across your organization, and if everybody spends 3 hours per feature trying to figure out how to navigate this, it's no wonder that total productivity in organizations is actually going down because we've rushed into adopting a technology that's still, let's face it, pretty alpha level. Another favorite example is that when I try to integrate this to Excel, you can, for example, generate, I love generating these complex formulas for Excel, and now you can do it in like 5 seconds. Once again, when you figure out what are the application boundaries of using Copilot with Excel. And one example when it didn't work was that I had a budget file where for some weird reason in the conversion, the number data had been converted to text data. Well, you guys probably know how to fix that, right? So I went to Copilot and asked it, can you just convert them back to number data? And it said, hey, okay, okie doke, all done, chief, well done. And I go back and I run my formula and it comes back with a blank because the cells are still text cells. And an activity that outside the application boundary, when you're using the app the traditional way, would take 2 seconds. It took me actually 45 minutes to figure out until I actually gave up, because it turned out that application boundary there doesn't exist. There is no way that ChatGPT or the Copilot could actually perform that particular activity. So this is the problem that we're facing. So if we want to use these, and if we want to get to those productivity gains, 4 things need to happen. First of all, leadership in organizations really needs to learn how these things actually work. They're not magic things. They don't do everything. They're not robots that are out to replace us. They're statistical, algorithmic technology that can replicate to a great extent what happens when a human being is performing things like ideation or trying to figure out things. They're association machines. And as such, they are amazing. When you find the use cases, we are talking about saving days per person across an organization. But you need to figure out first how they work. Second, leadership in the organization needs to figure out what are the actual strategic goals towards which we are adopting these technologies. What do we actually need this for? Not just rush into, hey, let's get everybody on the ChatGPT subscription or Copilot subscription. What do we actually need this for? And then once you've identified that, then you need to find the actual best tools out there that fit those strategic goals. So in other words, it's not always Copilot or Gemini or ChatGPT. There might be something else. In my personal line of work, I actually use ChatGPT and Gemini in tandem. I do a lot of piggybacking between the two. Whenever, I run, for example, this pretty cool feature, you have to be a bit careful with this, called deep research. I run it on both platforms simultaneously, because otherwise I might get tricked by hallucination. I might still get tricked by hallucination if they both do it, but I'm sort of like pushing down the likelihood of that happening. And then finally, and the most important thing is that you are the best expert in figuring out how these tools work for your line of work. And that means that we need to adopt a kind of a trial and error culture in adopting these tools. So once we know, once we understand how these things work, we know why we want them, we know which ones we want, we need to deploy them in a controlled fashion, getting a particular team trying them out. And then when more and more people are using them, the best way to get beyond the jagged frontier is to actually try things out, having an open mind, and then have a very critical attitude, being very candid about these things that I've highlighted here, that they are not amazing for everything. But once you've discovered what works for you, and you can share it with your team, and then across the whole sector that you're working in your organization, perhaps even across the sectors, and that's when the know-how starts to percolate throughout the organization. And that's when we should expect some of these gains that now can already be demonstrated in controlled situations. So I just want to conclude with one remark, because my book came out in January, and I submitted the final version at the start of December. And many of these findings that I've shared here are findings that I picked up from research from my book. The Procter & Gamble research that I very shortly mentioned, the one about well-being, that came out only a couple of weeks ago. The funny thing is that last fall, from my first manuscript submission to the publisher in September to when the book went to print in December, I had to constantly keep chasing how things are developing. And this is my 8th nonfiction book, I've never had to do that before. Before, we would just make sort of like, correct typos after that phase. And now the English translation is coming in a couple of days. And again, I actually had to make some substantial changes there, especially because 2 new technologies have been introduced that are once again shaking the boat quite a bit. One of them is inference or reasoning-based LLMs, which actually now can do a lot of, I just showed you, a slide that says that you shouldn't use these for reasoning. But now you can actually do a lot of these, reasoning tasks for these, unless you can't. And that's still the trick there. They are way more reliable, but none of these technologies are absolutely reliable. And then there's another technology called deep research, which is now available for both Gemini, the Google AI, and OpenAI's ChatGPT. And that means that basically you can run a 20-page literature review on any topic in your field. It takes about 30 minutes to complete. So basically a work that right now you would need to have at least a bachelor-level student in an academic facility to work on at least 2 to 4 months can be completed in 30 minutes. They're not error-free, they're not always free of hallucinations, but they're good enough that you can actually use them. And that's crazy because in my book I was assuming that that kind of technology won't exist in years. So if you want predictions about AI, I'm probably not the guy to ask. But that's the situation we are in right now. And that's why if you really want to get the best out of strategic implementation of generative AI in the workplace, you need to do 2 things simultaneously that are completely opposite to human beings. You need to have an open mind, go out there, test things, try to figure out how they actually work, and then you need to be very critical about whenever they don't work and share both information across at least the people you work with, maybe your sector, if possible, in your entire organization. And that's how I believe that we can go from this kind of muddled state of ambiguous adoption of AI to our organization actually getting to those multi-tens of percent points of productivity, creativity, and well-being gains that have already been implicated by current research. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I wrote a guide about this because this one is already becoming old, so that's free of charge. You can download it from this address. I keep updating it. The most recent version came out 2 weeks ago. It actually has already a pretty in-depth analysis of both reasoning and deep research AIs. So check it out if you want to dive deeper into these topics. And now, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Lauri Järvilehto. If I didn't remember to mention in the very beginning, let's take all the questions at the end, also folks on the line, so you can type your questions there in the chat. Next presenter is Nina Hagman from Dyn Studios, and 15 minutes, so about 5 to full hour.
Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone. Nice to see so many of you today here. And I heard that we have a nice crew joining also online. Super. So what I'm going to speak about today, so it's from AI strategy into business as usual AI, hopefully. A bit about myself. I'm a director, Data and AI Transformation Advisory here at Dyn Studios, and I've been in this data and AI consultancy role for a bit over 6 years now. And AI strategies, data strategies, operating models, governance projects, so they've kind of been my bread and butter. So this is a topic very dear to my heart. I've also been in leadership positions in in-house roles. Also, I have been in interim roles in data analytics and AI functions across various companies. Also, some advisory for corporate business strategies as well as for new business development. And very importantly, so obviously this is a picture created with ChatGPT and the new version of it. It's, again, me as an avid cross-country skier. Do I look a bit like Jasmi Joensuu? I think. So it's kind of me, but it's Jasmi. And only if I could have Jasmi's speed, so I would be very, very happy. Okay, but now into the actual interesting topic. Dyn Studios, just one quick promote slide. So again, this is our bread and butter as well. So from AI strategy into implementation. So what do we have? So we have AI strategy. Everyone is super happy. Everyone is like, yay, this is the best thing ever. Now we are truly going to succeed. But then there is this business as usual AI. It seems a bit elusive. And now we should build this bridge. And the bridge is a bit vague. As you can see, it doesn't really look sturdy. So, but there's the question. Are the organizations there already enjoying this business as usual AI? What do you think? Yes? Hands up. No? Hands up. Yeah, I would agree. According to studies, indeed, studies also agree with you. So organizations are not enjoying this business as usual. Wonderful AI implementation. So this is a study from McKinsey, and apologies, I just noticed that I have here in the source said that these are BCG colleagues, not McKinsey, but this truly is McKinsey and the colleagues. So they have been doing this study in States saying basically only 1% of the organizations now really describe their organization as truly mature, really enjoying this business as usual AI. And obviously industry matters in this one. So it probably does not come as a surprise for you that there are forerunners and then there are the laggards. And usually the forerunners, so no surprise, they are the software development companies. They are the born digital companies. They might be the communication service providers, insurance, banks, really the industries that basically enjoy the kind of like benefit of having abundance of data, but also digital products, versus the manufacturing companies, really the heavy industry. So they tend to lag a bit behind. This is also from us, from Dyn Studios. So as I mentioned, so we have conducted dozens of strategy projects in AI, in analytics, in digital, in data. These are from some of the AI strategy projects, and really, as you can see, I think that it's full of little rectangulars, but really the interesting part is on the bottom line. So the average maturity, really, and this is something that you can interpret that, is this like the business as usual AI or not? So the average maturity is low. I think that the average, what we have discovered, it's on this 1 to 4 point scale, so it's 1.5. There is one company of all the ones we have conducted where the maturity was roughly 3. And again, no surprise, it was a communication service provider. Okay, that's it. Maturity is not good. But is it even beneficial to have an AI strategy? I still say that in order to know what you should be doing in the implementation, it's super good to have AI strategy. But one interesting point I would just like to highlight here is that because AI is advancing so rapidly, as also Lauri said, so really there were companies having more clarity in their AI strategy and more clarity in like, okay, what is the role of AI in our business strategy in the past compared to that, okay, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of, I don't know, at the moment. Really the proliferation of this topic, it makes decisiveness a bit hard. However, there is still this one very clear benefit, according to studies, that companies that report that we do have an AI strategy, we know what to do with AI, so they are twice as likely to generate additional business value from this technology. Okay, maturity tends to be on the low side, but it's good to know where you are starting from. Why is it hard? Well, really this enterprise AI, which is this business as usual AI. So this kind of means for us that AI is used in every business process in various and evolving formats. But this comes with several challenges. Scalable AI requires strategic integrations across the organizations. What does this mean? Well, we need some focus for the value. As Lauri said, where to use AI? Well, usually there is not a shortage of ideas. So more you collect ideas, and many of you, I know that you might be collecting ideas in the organization, where to use AI. So usually people do have ideas, okay? We do have ideas. We need technical enablement. We need the tools. Again, ChatGPTs, all those ones are great. We might need something more. We might need a data platform. We might need an intelligence platform. We need data pipelines, APIs. We need cybersecurity. Yeah, that's a thing. We need all those ones. We need skills. We need talent. We need organizational structures. A bit more harder, because again, it's about the people. Then, really the hard part comes. We need to change processes and operating model. And this is the sticky part. If there is a person who has experienced that changing processes and operating model, ways of working, that this was a piece of cake, walk in the park, please come to me. I would like to know your secret. Last thing, data mapping and governance. This is really, it's not about having data. I just spoke with a CEO related to one project that I'm doing, and he was very proud. We have so much data. So basically that means that we are super adept for success. Kinda, yeah. There might be a few kind of side chores. Really mapping this data, knowing out what the data is, having data standards, mapping this data to your processes, the existing ones and the new ones. So that's the hard thing. Systemic challenges tend to be laborious, complicating things. And this is also, Karolina just left, but I think that she would have agreed, because this is also what the Nordic State of AI survey concluded, that these systemic challenges are indeed hindering AI adoption and the maturity increases. Those companies who have done their work, they have perspired, they have endured, they have invested, they basically report that they have 43% less systemic challenges versus these other companies who still have some job to do. Okay, then about investments. When speaking with clients, so this is the kind of like the tricky part. Everyone wants to do stuff, but then when it comes to money, then it's like, yeah, but then we do have our ERP project and the CRM, and then we have this and that. But these maturity increases rarely, I would say never, happen without investments. And also according to this Nordic State of AI survey, so insufficient investments being the biggest AI challenge at the moment. Okay, how to secure the funding? We now want to invest. What do we need to do? This is the skimpy budget holder, the naysayer. Everything is going a bit wrong. How to assure this guy? Well, we need to create the business case. There needs to be the business case. Again, companies do investments based on the ROI, so you need to build your case. Ideally, please go into financial statement level. Please go into cash flow statement level. More precise you can be, the better. Then very practically, should we focus into small victories, try small, then scale, That's one strategy. However, BCG study basically found that the ones that are AI leaders, that they choose another route. They basically concentrate 80% of the investments into big swingers, really something transforming, for example, one essential business process of the company, or creating new products, services, something that is bigger than just the operative hygiene that Karolina and also Lauri talk about. Those are important matters as well, but are those the ones that are going to generate a competitive advantage? Probably not, because the other ones, they will be doing those ones as well. These AI leaders, so again, about this volume. So what is this volume? So instead of going for big volume, they tend to choose the smaller one, because they also know that the bandwidth in the organization, it's always limited. So they usually go with 3 to 4 cases instead of 6 or more. And again, now I'm really heavily promoting these big victories. Small victories are important as well. Because again, they are there sooner. They basically assure that we are on the right track. This can work. Also, one aspect about funding and ROI, there is definitely cost uncertainty. This is really the thing. This quick proliferation of the technology. So this makes it super difficult for organizations to predict what the ROI will be. Many companies are pondering, should we buy off the shelf? Should we build something customized? Should we use kind of like the quick and easy, and then with some quick tweaks, Power Automates, RPAs, try to make some progress? What is the right path forward? Again, there is no right one. However, is there the thing that is going to bring the competitive advantage? Maybe this is a thing to consider. And also, additionally, this rapid pace of development, what we see as consultants and with the clients, so this really brings the temptations for many that, okay, what if we wait? What if we wait 6 to 12 months? Maybe this is cheaper. Maybe this solution will become available as a feature of the shelf application, whatnot. And yeah, it might work, but 6 to 12 months is a long time. If you're not doing something, maybe someone else is doing. So really to move at the pace of AI, I would advise the leaders that they would really prioritize this accelerated decision making. So many times acting now is better than waiting for too long. Just a couple of words about these systemic capabilities. So you are probably quite familiar with these types of hype curves, that hype peaks before the value realizes, and then because there is a discrepancy, so there becomes this moment. Nothing works. And it is. So despite all the business cases, even the good ones, many still have these unrealistic expectations for AI value in project deliveries and forget that real value generation usually happens when the scalable enablers are at place. But as we just concluded, developing these capabilities, systemic capabilities, takes time. It's not like they are there, or I can just like that, then that DeepSeek or whatever. These ones. So long-term view. Expect ROI in 1 to 5 years, not overnight. And about people, just one. Leadership. This was also what Lauri mentioned. This will be really needed in successful implementation. C-level 1, however, being the crux, because usually C-level is on board already. But there is this pressure for the C-level -1 from the top and from the down. This is really something that all levels are needed. C-level needs also to deprioritize some initiatives, because again, you can only take so much. The C-level -1, they need to be assured, they possess the process knowledge, so you really need to get those people on board. And the business experts, as Lauri said, so really they need to really practice the individual productivity with the tools and invent what the organization could really accomplish. And this was all of what Lauri said, and this is where I would like to end my presentation. 1, thinking big, focus on the value, big enough, and value over volume. Then investing really for these systemic capabilities, knowing that this is not like a quick thing. Developing those capabilities takes time, but then that will scale, that will accelerate your AI value generation. Leadership and culture. Make AI everyone's business, not just a hobby project. Deprioritization to prioritize the most important ones. And again, please do not treat AI as a nice-to-have feature for your skydiving pack. Because again, when you are then jumping and on the way down, you might have fantastic sceneries. But it's really going to maybe hit you when you meet the ground at the terminal velocity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina, for reminding us to focus on value. And our last speaker is Sami Ahmaaho from Neste. Please join the stage. And another 15 minutes, so it will be like 13 past by that clock when we start the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today, this evening. My name is Sami Ahmaaho. I work as a AI architecture lead at Neste. Throughout my career, for 15 years now, I have been working around with statistical analysis, AI, machine learning, these types of topics. Spent a few years in academia, then later on kind of on the IT development side, and then AI, machine learning in different roles. Today I'll be talking about, as today's topic was AI from strategy to implementation. I will try to do my utmost and best to pour what I have learned in those 15 years from directing, from steering, from working in AI endeavors to you, and the kind of the learnings from all of these different things. I will mainly, maybe, move on a little bit on a high level, but at the very end, I'll try to kind of wrap it to very practical things. But let's get going. If the slide changes, yeah. I'll start from here. So I just picked randomly a couple of things that I get on my LinkedIn feed. And as you can assume, I'm in a little bit of an AI bubble in my LinkedIn feed. I'll get the random look at what ChatGPT did today for me. I'll get the model comparisons, and then I'll get the model bingo, so to say, that which of the models you're supposed to use as a user today. And I argue that although the technology part is very significant, it's especially these days because it's moving so rapidly forward. But do not put the cart before the horse. Do not think that the kind of the technology alone or now the fast advancements in technology will make you a success or make your cases a success in the AI space. It will need much more than that. So what will it need? I argue that there are two different types of races or games today in the AI space. There is the game where if you're an AI company, kind of if you have an AI product or you're a startup, you might be a larger company, a global company, you have an AI product, your business plan needs to start AI first. That's a given. Okay, so the technology has more of a importance, more of a driving force. You need to be kind of very much on cue with that. Makes sense, right? But if you're an AI applying company, you might be okay by just thinking on how to apply AI the best. And this is kind of, I think, a very important distinction to make between how you approach AI technology and how you drive your own focus towards different types of things. Whether you focus more on the technology, what does it mean for your product, for your business, or if you should primarily and always look at the kind of how are you applying the AI. And for those that are in the applied AI game, as our company is, the technology only gets you into the ride. It gets us the permission to use these different type of AI products to solve different type of business problems. But that's only the kind of the thing that gets you into ride. You need to understand the technology, and you need to understand it extremely well. And especially because it's now kind of moving on a fast pace, you need to kind of stay on top of it all of the time. So although today kind of my message will be that you should focus primarily on how you're going to apply the technology, which is today is the AI, but there is still kind of the implication that it doesn't actually take anything away from understanding the technology and AI, although my message kind of is the business case first. More, I'm saying that actually these days demand a whole lot more from us that we assume. So we should understand technology very well and then start working on the actual things that matter, which are the tangible outcomes. This is a framework which we've used at Neste to kind of track and make AI strategies, data strategies. The original version is from Gartner. We've modified it. Just want to mention that out. And it has a lot of similarities to what Nina talked in her talk just a moment ago. But I want to highlight kind of a couple of things here, and this is kind of now we're touching in the story of from strategy to implementation. Now we are talking about the strategy part. So on the left-hand side, we have the why. So you need to understand as a company the vision and the strategy. You need to have some type of a direction, some type of understanding what you are going to accomplish with AI. Then you need to map out your use cases where you are using AI. And this is kind of then, in the next slide, I'll be going towards more kind of what is the concrete thing, how to track the actual use cases, what makes a difference there. You need to also understand what is the value of those specific use cases, not only that what are the use cases. Then leadership. This was also something that Nina mentioned, and extremely important. So you need to have the support from the leadership. That support might mean different types of things depending on your organization. Like I said, there is 2 different games as I see it being played in using or using AI in your company. So that was the kind of the AI first type of AI company and then applying AI. Then on the right-hand side, we have the what. And that's mostly kind of where we these days, I feel, that we spend a little bit too much time. And I would argue that we've done this for 10 years. We talk about the technology, we talk about what is the data, what type of data would we need primarily. Those are all valid things, I'm not saying that. But they only get you in the ride. That's the minimum thing that you need to know, and the actual business value that you get out of knowing the what is the why. Then in the middle, we have the how. I won't go into too much detail on that today. That's primarily how you collaborate between all of these things. How do you set it up in your organization so it isn't all of a kind of a circus and a complicated endeavor throughout the business. But that's the strategy part. I'm not saying that this is kind of the end-all, be-all. Go ahead and think about what these mean in your company. Think about the kind of the relevant ones. But oftentimes I see these same items mentioned again and again in different businesses. One final thing on this slide could be that, however, if you find that in your company you are only talking about the what, then I would caution you. Maybe you are right, I might be wrong. But then I would caution you that still question yourselves. Is talking about the data and the technology and how are we going to technically solve the problem with what data, is that the only thing that you need? Are you actually spending enough time talking about the why? Then from strategy to implementation. So as you can understand, those in the previous slide were really kind of on a high level. I want to take it kind of on a practical level. What does this mean and applying these principles in one specific case example in our company? This case is a few years back. I think it might be 3 years now. We were working on optimizing vessel logistics. And vessel logistics for us, it means that we have different types of vessels that we mainly charter, either by spot or by time. And as you can assume, that amounts to a huge cost when we are kind of moving our product from different refinery sites to different markets. And for us, being a very sustainably aware company, it also means that we are looking kind of the GHG emissions control. So by optimizing the vessel logistics for us, it means the emissions control. It means also the efficiency metrics, like the estimated times of arrivals and these types of things. And it also means controlling port costs. And for this particular example, I'm going to talk about port costs, because we did a forecasting model for port costs, which are a significant driver in our logistics cases and kind of in this logistics chain. Funny enough, like I state there, the team that worked on this particular case was a data science trainee team. Why I mentioned that there in the first place is that I'm making the point that it doesn't need to be the most senior people, the most well-advised data scientists or AI unicorns that work on your cases. It's tremendous if you have those. All of the people that worked on this team were very, very bright. So there was that benefit, but they were also people that had just or were just in the verge of completing their university studies. So the point that I'm making is that it kind of makes the most difference if you're systematically doing something. You can still have kind of junior people, you can have a mix of different type of people, but if you do not have a systematic way of approaching or solving a case, then even having the most fantastic people probably doesn't matter. A busy slide, and this is also my final slide, but this is now the part where I want to spend the rest of the 2 minutes that I have left, and a very important part as well. So systematically tracking value. This is the implementation part. You might think that the previous slides were maybe on a high level strategy, all of that, but I would argue in whichever point in your career you are, talking about these items that I've listed here are extremely important, even in doing implementations or doing the strategies. So what we did in this case, and what I would advise to use as a framework of systematically tracking value for an AI case, is listed there on the right-hand side. I'll talk you through it. You want to track your data assets for an AI implementation. For us, for this particular case, it meant that we track which vessels we have, which ports are which ports the vessels are going to in order to predict cost, and then the cargo information that is inside those ships. So that's the data. We understand the data, we understand the systems, where it comes from, we understand the granularity. And then the AI product. So how do we refine that data? What is the exact thing that we do? And this is usually the algorithm, the model, the method. For this particular one, predictive model, random forest to be exact, for more accurate planning. But then comes the actual, I think, the value-added parts. The information value. So, okay, you create the random forest model. What is the actual information that you're creating with that model? We created the estimate of the cost for each cost category specified. So we understand that for each category of different type of product, we have a certain cost that we predict. And through this information, then there are certain decisions that we understand that can be done. And in this particular case, the logistics planners were able then to pick the best possible scenario or the vessel logistics plan, because we needed a human in the loop. It couldn't be only automatically solve the problem and then kind of put into action. Okay, so you know the decisions to be done, you track that. Then you need to understand the related business value. So if you kind of get that information, if you do those decisions, then what is the actual outcome? What is the business value that you get out of this? And from this, it was savings from selecting more optimal scenario than the other ones would have been. There are also stakeholder values. So you are creating business value, but inside the organization, also outside the organization, you might create some type of other values. These might be external stakeholders. Obviously, we move these ships in public domain, in public waters. So that's one thing to consider. But for example, in this, the internal ones, the voyage planners are X% more confident in their plan. So they are able to kind of also drive the internal processes better. And finally, the strategic goal. So, okay, the efficiency of operations and transformation of our logistics planning was one of the strategic goals here. And so by doing this, if you track all of these points, you are actually able to track from data and from model level all the way to the strategy. And if you do this for the most important cases in your organization, I argue that you also are able then to track your AI model performances and how those contribute to strategic business priorities, as well as how the data contributes through AI to strategic business priorities. So that's all that I had. I think I went a little bit over, but now I think we have some questions, Q&A session coming up, so thank you.
Nina and Lauri, if I may ask you to join the stage as well. Hey, folks on the line, feel free to type questions. I'll read them from my handheld prompter phone. But also, let's take a question or two from this room. But maybe I'll start from the line here. I think there was a good one. I think this goes to all three of you. Do you think smaller companies can also benefit from the new technology, or is it only the big players? Let's start from Lauri.
Absolutely. And I think actually smaller players are in a highly advantageous position for two reasons. So first of all, it's because you can, with a smaller group of people, you can navigate the adoption boundary better. You can train people in how these models work. You can test different kinds of platforms, different kinds of tools, what works, what doesn't. So you can, the adoption curve is probably like, faster. And then the other thing is that the sort of like, this very recent Procter & Gamble research that came out from Harvard a couple of weeks ago. So it actually indicates that people working in teams, they gain about 20% better results than people working individually on a given task. But people working individually with an AI actually gain almost 40%, 37% to be accurate in terms of the same gains. And then ultimately people working in teams with AI, it bumps to 39. So that kind of like shows that if you have a small organization, they can first of all adopt these technologies faster, and they can get to gains which actually like, can make them competitive against larger incumbents.
All right, Nina.
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same. Obviously, with smaller companies, you tend to have smaller resources. However, then there is this balancing act that probably you do have less legacy, you do have less people. And again, as Lauri said, so that's also an advantage that you can then leverage. And now you are in this fortunate situation that the price of this technology, so that has basically plummeted. So getting these capabilities, so previously that would have cost a fortune. So these technologies have really become available, I would say, now for smaller companies.
You come from one of the biggest companies of Finland, so how would this work in a smaller company?
No, I see it exactly the same way as the colleagues here stated. One thing that I would add also is that from the generative AI hype curve type of thing, this all started just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Everyone was on the same starting line during that time, more or less. Obviously, being a bigger company, then you might have more resources. But anyways, kind of from the time perspective, anybody was on the same starting line at that point.
All right. Let's take a question from the room. If you, Patrick, kindly pass the microphone. Please state your name and then the question.
Yes, thank you. My name is Alexander. I'm a student at Helsinki University. I have a practical question for Lauri. How much does prompt complexity increase productivity in text processing and qualitative analysis?
How much does prompt complexity increase productivity and...
In text processing and qualitative analysis, for example, of academic studies and so on.
Oh, that's a great question. It doesn't have a straightforward answer. But technically, it's not just the complexity of the prompt, but the quality of the prompt that really matters. And now first of all, for the traditional models like GPT-4o or like Gemini Flash, what you need to do is you need to state both the context for the prompt, so who are you, what you're seeking for, and then have a sufficiently detailed description of what you're expecting from the AI. So it does need to have a certain degree of complexity. But given that the whole kind of the generation process is a stochastic method, so that means if the complexity of the prompt increases beyond certain boundaries, then also the output may just kind of blow up. So that's something to be aware of. Now the plot twist comes that now with these reasoning models like OpenAI's O1 and O3 or Gemini Thinking, or DeepSeek for that matter. So they actually seem to involve a completely opposite prompting strategy. You actually have to be very succinct and very condensed in the way you begin prompting these things. And most experts actually right now, they recommend aiming for a kind of zero shot. So basically the lingo is that multi-shot prompting means that you actually need several chats with the bot to get to what you want to see. And now the kind of the starting point for reasoning models is that you actually should start with zero-shot prompting, because the way it generates the thinking tokens actually already increases the complexity of the token, complexity of the context up to a degree. But one last thing, because I actually love this question, but one last thing is that we have been actually spending now some time with some of the the math and AI professors at Aalto, and trying to understand that what is the actual sort of math that's happening in a reasoning model. And there seems to be a peculiar thing that as the context grows with these thinking tokens, so basically the easiest way to test this out is you go to DeepSeek and you ask it the question and it starts going I wonder if it should be like that, and no, wait, it should be like that. So it's actually generating this kind of artificial sort of mimicking human thinking. And actually it seems like that as the thinking token the amount of thinking tokens in the context increases, the entropy goes down. So that's kind of so to make a long story short, for traditional models, you need to give it enough specifics to, a complex enough prompt to get value out of that. For reasoning tools, apparently, currently at least, our sort of experts seem to agree that it's exactly the opposite. I hope I answered your questions.
Yes, may I ask a quick follow-up question?
Sure.
Yes, just about the actual format of the prompt that you give to the machine. Is there a specific type of language that's recommended? So, for example, if I were to gather the core notions of a text in intelligible manner as efficiently as possible, is it efficient to just state explicitly the idea that you have in your mind, or is there some kind of formatting procedure which increases the accuracy or creativity of the output?
Well, it depends on the use case. So the sort of I'm actually in my guide I have sort of both types of prompting described to some extent, and for traditional models, kind of the quick and dirty is that tell it who you are, or for example, I have a ChatGPT set up where I actually have this pre-prompt that's run on every single context every single chat that I have with it. Tell it as detailed as possible what you want, and then if you want a particular, for example, style of text, give it examples. So give it reference text, if you want it to replicate the way you write, give it a chunk of text that you're writing and highlight it as a reference, and that should work pretty well. But it does get a bit more complicated, especially right now, because now increasingly most of these models tend to be multimodal. So it's not just anymore accepting only text inputs, but you probably read about all the craze about the GPT-4 or image generation that was launched earlier this week. And actually, poor Google, they had the same thing like a week ago, but it's a bit hidden in the beta program. So anyway, they kind of blundered that one. But anyway, so now you can also add images. You can chat with it, like, having like a spoken conversation. You can use an audio input. So it's not just text-based anymore. And right now, the jury is sort of out, like, that how does the math gets exponentially more complex when you have like all this data out there. So, but long story short, to try to answer your question succinctly as possible, so just for traditional models, tell it who you are, tell it what you want to see, and give it an example. For reasoning models, try to be initially as condensed as possible, and then expand. If you're not seeing what you want to see, then expand on that as the context grows. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Lauri. I'll take a short question from the line, and then we'll take next from the audience. This one goes to Sami and Nina. Sami first. What new technology are you most excited about right now, and why?
Really hard to choose, but let's pick one. Let's pick knowledge graphs. I think those are very highly interesting on the topic of retrieval augmented generation solutions. If those would work instead of vector databases with knowledge graphs, I think that could kind of give a huge insights into how we kind of handle our data, how we understand our data in research type of problems, but elsewhere as well. How about you, Nina?
I will abstract a bit. I will answer agentic AI, of course, because again, so really excited about the opportunities it allows for really changing, thinking, rethinking these business processes, mimicking human behavior. Again, not a walk in the park, but all the opportunities of these agentic systems. So very excited.
The previous AI Monday we had in Helsinki,
exactly.
There was a brilliant story by, was it Hugo?
Hugo
Jägerto was telling the case where you had built 5 AI agents that were working as a team. It was
exactly.
Just amazing. Let's take one question. Please state your name and the question.
Hello, thank you for good talks. My name is Juho Reo. I work on AI governance and standardization. My question is that all 3 of you kind of drafted paths to strategic development and slightly from different angles. I want to ask the opposite. What are the warning signs and the examples of bad steps towards anything on organization to develop AI? Do you have good examples and what to look out for?
A juicy question. Let's start again from this end. Sami, please.
Yeah, thank you. Juicy question. I would pick on the set of things that I had on the final slide on the right-hand side. The further down you go, especially in the middle, when you had kind of the information created and the decisions to be supported and these types of things. If the solution isn't, or if the people creating the solution aren't able to answer those questions, then maybe you should have some kind of warning signs going and some warning signals blaring that, okay, maybe we want to revisit that why are we doing this in the first place and how is it impacting kind of people around us and inside the organization?
Super good question. From my perspective, so what I'm thinking is that, again, many things that you could be doing, so on an individual level especially, so again, do not be stupid, but a warning sign for those big cases. So again, obviously we need to bear in mind the requirements from the GDPR, AI Act, Data Act, and so forth. However, again, so I'm really thinking of these big companies that usually are our clients, that if you're not thinking that, okay, what could it be? How could this go wrong? So thinking strategically, also the negative consequences. And if you're not documenting, again, we do not know that, okay, what will be the exact requirements of the legislation, because those do not exist in practice. We only have some vague guidelines. But if you do not document, if you are not basically coherent in your actions, so that's definitely a red flag.
Lauri.
Yeah, I think like at least on an organizational basis, if the internal lingo starts to get too hypey, then I would really sort of like, bring out the red flags with haste. That is, it's kind of like, what you were saying. So basically, like, if the evaluation of these technologies doesn't have a healthy critical attitude attached to it, if it's just kind of like, oh, look at this is amazing, like, then you should really be careful about that. There's a lot of, like, sort of good warning cases, like, how this can, like, the Norway thing I described in my talk, but another one is like, that lawyers using ChatGPT to generate case examples, like totally, like, a really, really stupid way of using these technologies. People are actually now facing jail sentences in the US and Canada because they've been doing that. I mean, bringing fabricated cases to a court, and then when it turns out that, they've been generated with an AI, they don't actually exist. So once again, they're not search engines. So yeah, but that would be my sort of like, kind of canary in a gold mine sort of thing, like, that if the lingo in the way people discuss about this gets too hypey and too sort of like overexcited or overeager, then I would just kind of like chill out for a moment and try to see where the actual applications are.
And a quick follow-up to comment what Sami also said. So this is not like, okay, develop once and then just let it go and be happy.
Yeah.
But again, so really establish that part of your business, have evils, have this one as a continuous monitoring, continuous development, because again, models are evolving. So you need to basically follow up that what is happening.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is past. It's time to thank all of you folks on the line. You woke up too late to write the questions. Now they are streaming in, but the time is out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next AI Monday is in about 2 months' time in Helsinki. But there are plenty other AI Mondays, thanks to Dine Studios in Central Europe. So visit the page AI, what is that? -monday.de. All right, thanks everyone. See you next time.